this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I've just watered all my cooler ones, yeah? So that's some Masdevallias, Restrepias, Dracula, Paphiopedilums, and those two funny little dendrobiums up the back that need to stay cool. That's the Cuthbert Sony eyes. Bit of an eye-opener. This was a low-level feed last time they were flushed. Bear that in mind. When I flush with clean water, that's a TDS reading of next to nothing. It's about 10 or 11, I think, and a neutral pH of 7. Well, that's what they last had. Now this time they had a feed, very low level. The TDS was 75, and I put a bit of CalMag in. That took it up to a TDS of 85. This is a really low level feed, and the pH when I started, therein lies the problem, was 6.5. Now I've watered about 30 pots, yeah, and I thought, let's have a quick check on the runoff. Now the TDS has gone up a bit, you know, that's gone up from 85 to 110 with 30 pots. So there's obviously not a lot of residual feed left lying around in the pots, but the pH has dropped from 6.5 to 5.6. That's not funny. So it means this last lot got quite an acidic watering, the ones that least should have got it. Now I've actually got some dolomite lime. Got it a while ago, and it's been sat there in the bag doing absolutely nothing. Well, it now needs to be doing something. Obviously there's acidity in some of these pots, and it doesn't take many. I need to go and check my repot dates, but virtually everything I've just watered is in a mix of small bark and moss to one degree or another. Some have got quite a bit more moss than others, but along those lines anyway. But I need to go and check some repot dates here, because there could be a couple lurking in there that have been missed and their media is turning quite acidic. And as a temporary measure, obviously the dolomite lime, you know, will raise the pH in the pot as it's watered through. But next time this lot gets watered, it needs a hell of a good flush with multiple water changes to make sure it's clean water that's going in there, and give them a hell of a good flush. Now if a pot is starting to break down, doesn't matter how much you flush it, the water that stays in there when you stop will turn acidic. That's just how it is. And certainly with the Paphiopedilums, that doesn't do them any good at all, and doesn't do my Miltoniopsis any good either. So I need to look into things, and I'll film another bit on the end when I've sort of done a few checks and everything. But you can see how important it is to keep your eye on what's going on if you share water. Now if you don't share water, you wouldn't have this problem. Yeah, your runoff would go straight out of one pot and never go in another one. Go out on the garden somewhere or something. But as I've said before, I just cannot generate enough RO water to be able to do that. So yeah, I need to look into a few things, because that's quite honestly, that's a problem. I'm borderline actually putting that dolomite lime on my Paphiopedilums now and putting some clean water through them. But I need to find the culprits. There's some things lurking in here that have obviously got quite an acidic media, and it doesn't take many pots to actually drop the pH in the runoff. It doesn't take many at all. So I need to go and do some checking. I'll do it now. Right, so that's the suspects identified. Laziness on my part. There's 3 Restrepias in there that haven't been repotted since towards the end of 2016. Yeah, well, with moss and constantly wet, that's too long. So there's 3 Restrepias to do. There's also my Dracula is in pure moss, and I don't really want to disturb it, but I don't know how long it's been in that moss, because it hasn't been repotted since I got it. So that's an unknown quantity. And there's also my Dracula Masdevallia cross that has an excellent root system, and again, see, quite honestly, I have repotted that. I've missed updating my notes, because that's in one of my pots and that's my mix. So that has been repotted since I got it, and I haven't had it a huge amount of time, so we'll cross that one off the list. And also in amongst here, there's one There's one that's been missed that hasn't been repotted since 2016, and it's which one is it? I'm not even sure I've still got it. See, again, I may not have just updated my notes. Oh, it's that one, Macabre. This will make you laugh. It's the one with the good root system. Well, according to my notes, that hasn't been done since 2016. And I believe in this case my notes are wrong. That media smells fresh and I've just soaked it. So it's my notes that are wrong. So that goes down as an unknown repotting date and will get done probably. Well, I could do it now. I mean, the time of year that Paphiopedilums get repotted doesn't matter that much. They're slow growers. It pays to wait until you can see some active root tips going on. Otherwise, they're in a slow state if there's no bright root tips pushing on. But with these, you're better off doing it if the media's starting to go. Whatever time of year it is, doesn't matter. You're better off doing it because the roots will go down on these quite fast and they take a hell of a long time, if ever, to recover. So the root systems need to be active. They need to stay good because once lost, they're a real pain to try and recover. It's just because they're very, very slow. I mean, once you get a decent sized plant, they do actually push on at a much more reasonable rate. But I haven't got any big plants. I mean, this is the one with the most fans on, and that's still not a big plant. But yeah, so I've got some repotting to do. It's not going to get done today, but it needs to be got on with. So I shall update my notes with some bright red, so that every time I look at my notes, it shouts at me until eventually I get on with it. But yeah, there's a few lurking in here that are, I hope that the time of year doesn't mess this up. But, you know, a media on these type of plants that's turning that acidic that it can change my pH that dramatically, the roots need to come out and go in something fresh, irrespective of the time of year. If I leave that till sort of mid-autumn, you know, sort of October time, I may have lost my root systems. So I need to get on with it. Problem sort of solved. Unfortunately, that water is now going to get dumped because pH is far too low and I'm not trying to raise it. You know, it's had acidity washed through pots into there, which I don't know its content, so I'll dump that bit. I can afford to waste a little bit, but not too much, obviously. And then I'll, you know, I'll be starting on the normal pots then, what I call the normal pots. And there's very few of these that I'm aware of are in the list of need repotting, because I keep on top of those a bit more. It's because these are a little bit forgotten down here. They get watered and everything, but they don't really get looked after that much. Anyway, so I'll keep my eye on it, and today, as a test, I'm going to mix up smaller amounts. Now, that's a bit more faffing on my part, because obviously each time I change the water or finish it, I need to mix up some more, and that means getting the feed out, getting the meters out, and checking it all. But it's worth it, you know. I'm starting early in the day today. It's still only just 9 o'clock, and I'll get at least half of my watering done today before the fans come on. So yeah, getting a bit lazy. It's easily done when you've got a lot of orchids, and the physical looking after them is taking the time. And the time to step back and do those sort of important checks on repot dates and things like that gets forgotten. It's easily done, you know. Believe it or not, I do other things apart from look after my orchids, you know. There is a life that goes on behind the orchids. Talking of which, Burnham Nurseries have got their summer fair on this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Basically, I think Peter White's going to be there, so he'll probably be selling some orchids if Sarah lets him. But he'll certainly have the orchid supplies there, all the pots and bark and moss and all stuff like that. I think there might be an Orchid Society display or two, and I think the Devon Orchid Society on probably the Sunday. If you're interested in going, go to the website and look it up. It's easy enough to find. In fact, I'm not sure it's on their website. It's on their Facebook page. But again, that's easy enough to find. But yeah, I think it's the Devon Orchid Society have got what they're calling an open meeting. So they're having a meeting there, because that's where they hold their meetings at Burnham Nurseries. But anybody's welcome to go and sit in on the meeting if you're interested in that sort of thing. So my daughter was supposed to be coming down this weekend, and something came up that she didn't want to miss, bearing in mind I'm here every weekend. So she cancelled coming down this weekend, so I'm free. So I'm pretty confident that I will go to Burnham's on Sunday. I haven't been to their nursery for some time now, and it's worth a good look round, and I should get some good filming done there as well, because Sarah doesn't mind. And their orchid paradise with all their specimen plants in bloom, and the pond and all the logs with the orchids growing on is well worth filming. So I'll get some videos out of it, definitely. And a nice day out and a nice lunch in their restaurant thing, or cafeteria I suppose you'd call it, because I don't think they cook much, but they do jacket potatoes and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm planning a day out. I'll be the first one for a while. And I'll see you next time. I got stuff to do. See you next time. Okay, I've finished watering pots as far as I'm going to go today. I'll pick up the rest tomorrow. Done well over half, but I still need to do my mounts, so I don't want to go too mad here. Thoughts. I've been watching the pH drop. Now, while I've been watering my other pots, not this lot down here, the TDS reading has hardly gone up at all. Yeah? So obviously there's no build-up in the pots as far as feed is concerned. That's good, but the pH has been dropping in some cases a bit dramatically as I water. So the next lot of water that I mixed up after the last lot that went ridiculously low, I didn't reduce it at all. I left it high, so started about sort of 6.8, and it's still dropped down towards the 5 mark. So obviously I'm getting a variety of pHs in a single watering, which I don't want. I lose control. Yeah. So I've just had a brainwave. They say necessity is the mother of invention. Now I normally pour in one of my containers and then add the feed and do whatever I need to do with it. And that's effectively a 4-pint container, which is 2 point something litres. Yeah. I have a spare bowl. Yeah. So brainwave. Why don't I actually mix up a bowl full separately, not use it for watering, and then just put small amounts in here until it runs out? So it only goes through a limited number of pots. So the change in the pH will probably be a minimal amount, and then just top it up as and when, and just keep frequently topping it up. But it means I don't have to keep mucking about with the feed and everything each time. I just mix one lot up with a low level if I'm doing those type of pots, and then when I've finished watering those, adjust the big bowl full to what I want, and then keep topping this one up and just do a few pots at a time. So that reduces the number of pots per unit of water, which means I'm not sharing the water anywhere near as much, which is good, and the pH won't change that much, which is also good. Why the hell I didn't think of that before, I really don't know. Anyway, just some thoughts. You know, when you get a problem, you have to have a good think about it, but identifying the fact that you've got the problem is sometimes the hard bit. And I must admit, I didn't realise that going through a number of pots would alter the pH that much. It does mean, obviously, that there is acidity in my mix. Well, that's the nature of bark and moss, yeah? Especially if it stays wet a reasonable time. Now, I suspect when I'm watering things that are only in bark, that are allowed to dry in between, the pH is hardly going to change at all. But wherever there seems to be moss, and particularly the smaller bark, the pH is dropping as I'm watering. So I need to refresh the water frequently so that it keeps starting at a higher pH. And it's not like I don't flush, because I do. But again, what am I flushing? I'm using a reasonably large volume of water to flush. By the time I've done 20 pots, Okay, there might not be much of a change in the TDS, but I could be washing acidity into that water, so I'm not really flushing. So I think we'll move along those lines and see how we get on with that. Obviously, I can't, as I've said, I can't water each pot individually. I've got to do them in groups, but I can keep the group much smaller, so it limits any damage or limits the effect, let's put it that way. And we'll see where we go from there. That could explain some problems, because I tend to water my pots in the same order, roughly. I do change it now and again. The ones that change the most are these. Like I nearly did these today, so they'd have been on the tail end of a set, yeah? Whereas tomorrow they'll be the first ones, yeah? That could make a difference as to what pH I'm ending up with going in the pots. And if a certain set of pots were always at the tail end of a batch of water and feed, they were never getting a high pH going through the pot. They were always getting a low value. And that may explain a few niggles that I've been having with funny coloured leaves and things. That could explain some things, won't explain everything. I doubt if Isabel's watching, but if she is, I've just watered the Joe's drum with the 2 new growths that I've been struggling with, and both of those new growths have got new growths. So that plant now has a reasonable future, because those 2 new growths are starting from scratch, yeah, and they should produce root systems to go with them. So I think we may get that one up and running now, because it's been incredibly slow to get going, that one, for no real reason. It didn't have that bad a root system. I mean, it's in an environment that suits it, but it just wouldn't get going. You know, some plants are just slow. They don't take to change very well. So anyway, I think that one's going to get up and running now. I'll see you next time.